concept that a white man came to Africa and observed Africans doing some shit, and he didn't understand it. He called it animism. Animism is the belief that objects, places, creatures, and all possess a distinct spiritual essence. Potentially, animism perceives all things, animals, plants, rocks, rivers, weather systems, human handiwork, and perhaps even words, as animated and alive. So when you hear people say animism, that's a concept when white people invaded Africa and saw that Africans had reverence for everything. So the European would come walking around and the African would say, hey, you can't walk on that land, or hey, you can't cut down that tree, or hey, this particular animal you cannot hunt, or if this animal crosses your path, you must make way for this animal. And this particular river, we don't bathe in, or we don't swim in, or we don't draw water from here. And they see your Africans walking past a fresh water to go way down another area of the fresh water and collect water there. They see Africans and they would say, these black people, these savages, these primitives have these weird rituals. They have these weird fucking rituals. So they just worship trees and they worship animals and they worship the sun. Now, this is a European mentality and a European ignorance of what Africans were actually doing. Because in the European mentality, man had dominion over the earth and everything existed for the white man's exploitation. Trees, animals, land was owned by man, controlled by man, dominated by man, kill what I want, eat what I want, destroy what I want, build wherever I want. So if you look, where are we now? Total ecosystem collapse. So African science was reduced to animism or spooky rituals when Africans were actually conducting themselves in a way where they had respect and reverence for the ecosystem. They had respect and reverence for biodiversity. They had things that white people are just discovering this in the last couple of decades. The food, they used to have the hierarchies, and now they were like, well, there's no real hierarchy in nature. There's a web. There's a food web, there's a food chain, and we think some animals are the king of the jungle or the dominant when we see that, or the alpha animal dominates, where they try to define nature based on their own mentality. They say nature is brutal, it's savage, it's vicious, everything is out to get you, and you have to kill or be killed, the law of the jungle. When African says no, there's a symbiosis here. All things are interdependent, all things are interrelated. So when we don't take food and water from this river, or we refuse to build a dam on this river, it's not because we think there's some magical properties in the river or there's some magical spirit in the river. That's what we would use these folklore, these analogies, these stories to teach scientific understanding. And so if we dam this river, this estuary feeds into this larger body of land. And if we obstruct the flow, that could cause salinization of this land. Or there's some key, what they call species of animals. I forgot, like what they call wedge species or anchor species that all of the species depend on or feed off of. So if you start to overhunt or overexploit this particular animal, or if we kill off all the predators, then that will weaken the stocks of other livestock around in our ecosystem. So Africans were living ecologically, and the white man said it's because we believe that there was a tree spirit. It's like we just now finding out, as the whole fucking world is on fire, but the parts of the world that aren't on fire are flooded, that trees stop flooding. Trees prevent soil erosions. Trees provide habitat for crucial species. So you don't just chop down trees willy-nilly. So some trees, some forests, or some bodies of land can't be tampered with or obstructed. So Africans were able to preserve and develop biodiversity and ecosystems, and the white man said it's because we're primitive. Why hasn't you go to Europe, everything's cut down, everything's concrete, everything's destroyed. It's because we are progressing, we have technology. And you go to Africa and it looked like it did 1,000 years ago. Now white people destroy their whole fucking environment, and then only the rich white people get on a plane and go back to nature. Now the white man has to spend tens of thousands of dollars to go to a cabin in nature. You destroy nature right here, and then you go pay and turn nature into a commodity. Make something that you could do for free when you walk out the front of your door, commune with the ecosystem and commune with nature. Now you got to pay all this money. And we even got black people getting on planes, flying halfway across the world to sit on a stool under a tree by some fresh water. And we think that's balling when it's truly fucking tragic. So that's one of the values or African traditions: reverence for ecosystems, reverence for the animals, not looking at ourselves as apart from nature, not looking at nature as something we can go to or escape from, but something we are born out of and dwell within. You got ecosystem now. Africa, since the Islamic hordes, Islamic colonization, and European Christian colonization, the deserts are expanding. Africa has the greatest biodiversity, and people say, "Oh, Africa has biodiversity because Africa, the motherland, is blessed." They start speaking about Africa the same way the colonizers did. They won't say, "Well, Africa has such great biodiversity. The greatest biodiversity in the world is because Africans, for thousands of generations, were able to live symbiotically. We're able to develop technologies that enhance their ecosystems, not extract and destroy." Africans are the mothers and fathers of not just humanities, but sustainability. Now you go online and you Google sustainability, and you got all these multinational corporations talking about, "Oh, this is our plan for sustainability." You go to the political parties and they're like, "Oh, well, one of the political parties, oh, we want a sustainable future." You had a sustainable past that you destroyed. So that's one thing. And now we got to talk about our ancestors' technology and wisdom through European misidentification. Africans didn't worship trees because they believed they were magical. We worship trees because our science articulated long before Europeans ever built their first university that trees are essential components of a healthy ecosystem. And a healthy ecosystem is the only true generational wealth. It's the only way to sustain yourself through generation after generation after generation. That's one of the African traditions or African rules: symbiosis, reverence for nature. living in cooperation and within the limits of our ecosystem. That you got African nations from the Songhai up the Nile Valley civilization, Nubian, Indus, the Kush, Ethiopian, Kemet, and you got these people that built the largest cities, the biggest wonders, like the wonders of the world, the pyramids of Giza. But you look around that area when Africans, before the Muslim hordes colonized that area and destroyed that culture, that was lush land, fertile land, and now it's a desert because of we don't worship animals, we dominate them, we don't have reverence for the land, we will carve out our way through the land. And so they believed that Africans were just living, letting shit happen to them, not knowing that Africans were utilizing science. Same thing with the Native Americans too. Now they were like, man, the plains, they believe the plains just naturally happened, the Great Plains in the Midwest of the Americas. And the white man came and saw billions of heads of buffalo and pigeons, and there were so many pigeons they would blot out the sky. And they were like, well, these primitive humans were just making this, just living here. And now they have to acknowledge the Native Americans too cultivated this, that the plains, the continent that spanned the nation from north to south, those were basically game reserves that the Native Americans deliberately and consciously cultivated. And in less than a generation, the Native Americans for tens of thousands of years had this fertile land that they would hunt for generation after generation and never deplete the resources, never pollute the water, never drive species to extinction. But the white man came here in less than a generation, turned a lush, fertile land into a dust bowl. The Great Dust Bowl. You got people that were able to maintain a land for thousands of years. And in less than 200, the European came and created a dust bowl of the most fertile land in the country.